Dear friends, I am Vivek Subba Reddy, Senior Advocate and President Advocates Association Bangalore. An interesting topic arises in view of the great resurrection of the Ram Mandir at Ayodhya. After 500 years from 1528, when originally the temple was destroyed and a mosque was built there, to about 500 years fast forward, we come to 2024, about 496 years later. And it is interesting to note as to the manner in which the Supreme Court has given this verdict. More particularly, perhaps the most interesting feature of this judgment was how the birthplace of Ram was found. There were several questions that were raised in this great litigation between various persons in the Ram Janmabhoomi case. The most important questions that arose was, perhaps this was the main feature of this litigation, whether Ram was born in Ayodhya. What is the evidence? And even if by the faith and belief of Hindus, Ram was born in Ayodhya, what is there to show that Ram was born at the exact site where people are identifying the place as Ram Janmasthan near Babri Masjid? Perhaps the most important features of evidence were the archaeological findings of the archaeological department of the Government of India, which was very hotly contested and debated, and the veracity of those findings were questioned by the Muslim parties before the Supreme Court of India. There were a number of archaeological findings. There were 90 trenches, up to 90 trenches that were dug in the area and vicinity of Babri Masjid after the permission of the High Court of Lucknow and the Supreme Court of India. And these 90 trenches revealed imagery, pottery material and various other relics dating back from the 2nd century BC till about 12th century to 14th century. Or images and sculptings of gods and goddesses were indeed the remnants of a Hindu type of worship or a Hindu type of temple. So the larger question was, where exactly was the Janmasthan of Ram? For this, the Muslim parties argued and questioned and said that apart from the belief and imagination of Hindus that this Ayodhya was the place where Ram was born, there is no proof. And there is no proof as to when exactly Ram existed. For this, the Hindus propounded the Valmiki Ramayana and said the Valmiki Ramayana was a contemporaneous book from the time of Rama, which has come down from generations. And this Valmiki Ramayana was written by Saint Valmiki, and who enunciated and explained in a comprehensive manner the various aspects of the life of Rama, from his childhood called Balakanda to the Aranyakanda, where he lived in exile after Dasharatha's vow in the forest, and then the Yuddha Kanda where he fought with Ravana, and finally when he came back and ruled in Ayodhya. These various kandas are found in Valmiki Ramayana, and this is beautifully depicted, and therefore it was said that it is clearly written in Valmiki Ramayana that Kausalya had begotten a son from Dasharatha who would be a savior of the world and who was God incarnate. This was a ground, and coupled with this, the faith and belief of the Hindu worshippers that Ram was born in Ayodhya. The question was raised that Ayodhya had been mixed up with the town Saket, and Ayodhya was not the same Ayodhya. It was a different town called Saket, and doubts were raised in this respect also. But the Sarayu River, which legend says takes rise in the Himalayas, in the deep Himalayas, and perhaps in Manas River, the Sarayu River passed through Ayodhya. And even today, the Sarayu River has various ghats, the Ram Ghat, Lakshman Ghat, and various other ghats, Papa Vimochana Ghat and Rin Mochana Ghat, Sita Ghat. The Lakshman Ghat was a place where Lakshmana went to heaven from that place, and Sita Ghat and various other ghats are enunciated. So, if we look at today's Ayodhya and the situation along the banks of the Sarayu River, we find that even if people through history may try to interpret it and tell various stories, but the facts do exist, but the ghats pertaining to these great personages exist there. The next question that was raised interestingly was, all right, if Ram is born in Ayodhya, this is one aspect, but what is there to show that Ram is born at that exact spot where the masjid is located? To this, the Hindu advocates propounded various texts of Hinduism. It is a very important feature to understand our dharmic writings. Our dharmic writings are basically divided into three: the Vedas, which number 4, the Upanishads, which number 108, and the Puranas, which number 18. These basically constitute the essence of the Hindu philosophy, and this apart, the revelations of God from Bhagavad Gita forms a unique epic and writing. It is these documents, it is these writings that had been given from generation to generation over thousands of years, which constitute the body of Hindu philosophy and the essence of Hindu religion. An interesting fact was that people say that it was the British who came and documented Indian history. It was the British who came and started using a scientific method of data recording and statistical recording. And we say that we have to be thankful to the British for unearthing the history of Indians. Well, if we say that, then we must review this sort of a conception of ours, or this sort of a conception imposed upon us during our schooling. Because Vivekananda said that what is there in the Indian philosophy, Indian Hindu religion and Indian epics is something more larger than what we believe. It has data pertaining to most of historical points. And the Puranas, the Upanishads and the Vedas, if all of them are collectively read, we find that we have a thorough and most comprehensive view of Hindu life, Hindu history and the Dharmic Shastras. And it is astonishing, perhaps, that in order to decide on the place where Ram was born, the British did not have any data except certain gazettes. The Mughals did not have any data except Aini Akbari of Akbar, which said that Janmasthan of Ram existed there. Akbar, during his period of emperorship for about 50 years, 5 decades, from the age of 16, was such a man with a great vision, and he was so cosmopolitan in his views, broad-minded in his views, that he got the Aini Akbari written and captured the various elements of religion, of all religions that exist in India, Hinduism and the Musliman. And while doing so, the Ayodhya's position was also captured. And there in Aini Akbari it was mentioned that Ayodhya was the place of Janmasthan of Ram. And before Aini Akbari, Akbar's grandfather, Babur, it is stated by legend and by history that it was Babur in 1528 who directed his General Mir Baki to demolish the existing structure there and build the mosque. According to the Muslims, it is stated that he built the mosque on a bare land. According to the Hindus, it is stated that the mosque was built after demolishing a temple. Well, this is something that could not be proved because there is not enough data on this issue. Though the mosque was stated to be built in 1528, Guru Nanak Dev, the great originator of the Sikh religion, commenced his Bharata Darshana or his Yatra around Bharat sometime in 1506 or 1507, if I am right. And in 1508 to 1510, he came to Ayodhya. And there, the Janamsakis of Guru Nanak declare that he prayed in the Janmasthan of Ram and stayed there for some time. So these incidents prior to 1528 were quoted before the Supreme Court to show that the Janmasthan of Ram existed there. From 1528 till 1856 till 1949, several attempts were made by Hindu Bairagis or the Hindu sadhus or the Hindu monks to recover the Janmasthan. And during this period, there was a lot of commotion, there were wars and there were fights. This is historically recorded. In one instance, about 300 Bairagis fought a posse of Muslim men in order to recommence prayers at the Babri Masjid. In 1856, there was an attempt to build the Ram Chabutra and install the Ram Paduka. In 1876, there was an attempt to install the idols within Babri Masjid. There was a consideration of a maze of issues right from Guru Nanak Dev's Yatra to the previous writings of various travelers. There were travelers from France, there were travelers from Europe who came and documented that there was a Janmasthan. But the most important and mystifying piece of evidence, and perhaps the one that gives us pride for our Hindu religion, is that the Hindus themselves had clearly documented the exact location of Ram Temple and the birthplace of Ram. And it is surprising because the general trend of belief is that the Hindus are very poor documentarians, poor historians. They never documented anything about the details of their lives, about history, about the pilgrimage places, about the sacredness of these sites. And they all say that they were very destitute in collecting in the richness of their history. And it is these questions which constantly are poured against Hindus, are constantly alleged against Hindus, that we have sort of cringed back and sat back and said, perhaps we are like that. And that is why Vivekananda and some of the most greatest reformers like Aurobindo said, no, the richness of this Hindu nation and richness of this Hindu way of life is the most formidable, the most ancient, civilizationally the most rich, and there is no other civilization that can match the richness of the Hindus. It was this great belief of these reformers, Vivekananda and Aurobindo, that gave this nation a larger direction, a larger vision, to stand up and stand tall and say that India can be the best in the world and can lead the world, which is where we are going under the present regime, under the present Modi's regime. Therefore, friends, these constructs and these interpretations were the most valuable pieces of evidence in assessing where exactly Ram was born. So, coming back to this great piece of evidence which was brought out by Hindu advocates before the Supreme Court of India, the Hindu advocates quoted one amongst the 18 Puranas. The Puranas are considered to be the descriptions of the ways of life of Hindus, the yatra places, the tendency of the Hindus to reach towards God, the spiritual aspects of Hindu life, the spiritual elements of Brahman, and all these concepts have been defined in the Puranas. They are a continuation of the Vedanta. Amongst the 18 Puranas, there is one Purana which is the largest, with 81,000 verses, and that Purana is called Skandapurana. The Skandapurana is named after Skanda, the son of Shiva and Parvati, and this Skanda is nothing but Murugan in South India, and it is the Murugan's Purana which is enunciated, named after him. And this Skanda Purana contains the larger details of the various yatra places of India, from Dhanushkodi and Ramsetu in the lower south to the Kedarnath and Badrinath temple. The clear descriptions are given regarding these yatra places. And it is said that this Skanda Purana was lost actually. The Skanda Purana was never recovered or never available for Hindus until it was discovered in 1898 in written reef leaves in Nepal. They were written on leaves in Nepal, and it was rediscovered in 1898, and they were translated into English and brought to the world. They were in pure Sanskrit. And this Skanda Purana enunciates, written in 4th century. There is a chapter in Skanda Purana called Ayodhya Mahatmya, and this Ayodhya Mahatmya contains the various deities, places in Ayodhya. And it incontrovertibly says that Ayodhya is the place where Ram was born. Several sages by that time had visited Ayodhya. One such sage was Lomarshi. This great sage, it appears, took a bath in one of the ghats and he could attain liberation. And he said that what a wonderful place this Ayodhya is. By taking bath in the Sarayu river, I have lost all my sins. And he describes, sage Lomarsh describes as to how beautiful and sacred this place is. The Skanda Purana, after enunciating this, has one para between 18 to 25 in Ayodhya Mahatmya on the exact place of birth. You know, in our property dealings, when we purchase a property, we have what is called a schedule to the property. If you purchase a flat or an apartment, you have one portion describing the apartment and second portion describing the larger property in which the apartment is located. So we say north by is so and so property, east by, west by and south by is so and so property, and the property is precisely identified. Now the Skanda Purana did not allow any doubts regarding the exact birthplace of Ram. The Skanda Purana appropriately notified the birthplace of Ram in 4th century AD. To the northeast of that spot is the place of birth of Rama. This holy spot of the birth is said to be the means of achieving salvation. It is said that the place of birth is situated to the east of Vigneshwara, the north of Vasishta, and to the west of Laumasa. So it gives the coordinates of the east, north and west and says, it is said that the birthplace of Ram is situated to the east of Vigneshwara, north of Vasishta and to the west of Laumasa. To the northeast of that spot is the place of the birth of Rama. So friends, this beautiful description in Skanda Purana of the 4th century AD virtually settled the question of the birthplace of Ram. And when those coordinates were matched, it was found that it was in the exact spot where the precincts of the masjid were located. In order to further be sure on this, the Supreme Court relied on a doctorate thesis of the year 1980s written by Hans Becker, who was a European philosopher and a scholar. And Hans Becker studied all the artifacts and existing places in Ayodhya for 3 years and did a thesis on the subject. And Hans Becker, in between 1980 to 1983, submitted his thesis to the European University. And there, the writings of Hans Becker clearly depict that when the locations of Skandapurana, the coordinates of Skandapurana are actually placed physically on the place, it exactly matches with the Janmasthan as propounded by the Hindus, where the masjid is located. And it is this sort of a detailed analysis and study that made the Supreme Court come to the conclusion. Dear friends, why I took the labor to bring this aspect of the various pieces of evidence in identifying the birthplace of Ram was to again remind ourselves, as the great proponents of Hinduism such as Vivekananda and Aurobindo boldly proclaim, that say boldly, you are a Hindu. This is the richest civilization. It has the richest philosophy and it has something to contribute to the world. And as long as India exists, Hinduism shall exist. The Sanatan nature of this Dharma is so profound, deep and mystifying. And it is so great and it is so beautiful to imagine that we have answers for the most complex questions in science and in the legal world, in our own Shastras and Dharmic writings. And these writings beautifully enunciate every aspect of the Hindu culture and tradition. If you look at the other parts of Skandapurana, there are beautiful descriptions of Dhanushkodi and Ram Setu, how Ram built the bridge. And even today, if you look at Ram Setu from the satellite, people say Ram is a mythical figure. Ram never existed. But what Ram has left exists even today. The bridge that Ram built, which is called Adam's Bridge by the Europeans, and which is named as such. This Adam's Bridge, if you believe it or not, is visible from the satellite even today, except that the stones have sunk. The exact bridge of Ram, which he built to bring back Sita, to cross over to Lanka, when he was faced with a huge ocean, and the Sagara, the god of oceans, said, build these, write Ram on the name of the stones and they will float and you will have a bridge. Ram had to transport lakhs and lakhs of the monkey warriors into Lanka to win against Ravana. Vibhishana came to him from Lanka, surrendered to Lord Ram and said that in this Dharma Yudh, I will be with you. And it was Vibhishana who asked Ram to invoke the god of the ocean. And Ram paid salutations and invoked the god of the ocean, when we all know that he said that build a bridge of stones. Now if Ram was mythical, if Ram did not exist, and Ram never came to Lanka, Ram never crossed the ocean, why is there even today the same bridge of Ram seen from the satellite? Exactly from Dhanushkodi, where mythology says Ram started for Lanka to Sri Lanka. Those stones are visible on the screen, and these shoal of stones exist from the Treta Yuga, according to Hindu belief, but they are existing from centuries. So therefore, friends, this is the greatness of our Dharma, our tradition, our religion, our Sanskriti. I think it is boundless and it is unmatched. There is no parallel in the world for a civilization to have such beautiful aspects as part of its life. That is why they say that this is Sanatana Dharma. 300-year Mughal invasion could not end this Sanatana Dharma. 850-year Muslim invasion from 10th century AD till 1856 could not end the Sanatana Dharma. 200-year-old British rule, with British customs, with English language, with introduction of railways, with modernization, could not end this Dharma. We are now moved from the horse and buggy age to the Tesla age, where we don't have engines and we run on solar, where our cars run on solar. But still, our Dharma, our traditions are getting more accentuated, pronounced. We have a deeper understanding and we go back to it many a time for the most complex solutions of our lives. And it is this complex solution for the birthplace of Ram as to where he was born, as posed by the Muslim lawyers, that the answer was found in a small sentence written in 4th century at para 18, verse 18 to 19, that this was the location of Ram, to the west of Lomarsh and beside the Vigneshwara. And this spot is today venerated as the Janmasthan of Ram. Thank you very much.